Hey everybody, welcome back to Cheap Brew. I'm Anthony. Today we are going to get started with a little project, our next project. It's going to be a Bochet Mead. Now Bochet is a mead that is made with caramelized honey instead of just straight honey. So we're going to be caramelizing some honey today, which is kind of a tricky process if you have never done it before. Anyways, for our recipe today, we're going to be using this remaining, 22 ounces of honey, because I took 16 out yesterday. This is going to be our Bochet honey. We're going to caramelize the rest of this stuff. This honey, this is 2 pounds, 8 ounces as stated earlier. This is all just going to be regular honey in the mead. Let's get started with this. So to start, we're going to be taking this honey, we're going to put it in this bigger pot, and we're going to kind of put it on a very low heat. Ask me how I know. And we're going to let it caramelize a little bit. I think we'll call that good. So as a quick public service announcement, honey is very flammable. If it boils over, you're going to be faced with a lot of smoke and a big fire. Shit! It's also worth mentioning that for this project we're using a different yeast. We're using Lalvin D47. Last time we used Lalvin 71B. I'm not 100% sure what the difference is, but the internet seems to recommend Lalvin D47. On another note, all of our stuff has been sanitized, and we actually have a beaker so we can test the gravity. So I've also started a 1-hour timer. We're about 3 minutes into this. I don't know if you can tell, but I can kind of see it. It's been 12 minutes, and we've already got a nice dark color. I think this is going to make a really pretty looking mead if all turns out well. I'm going to let that sit for a couple minutes. I wanted to show you something. I cataloged the process of the caramelization, and that's what this looks like. So this is shown based on time remaining. We got 55-minute back to 0, 0 is not marked, of course, and you can see the color progression of the honey. We're also ready to start activating our yeast, so let's go ahead and get that going real quick. To do that, we're going to use this bowl, which I've been keeping the spoon in. So I'm going to introduce this yeast into an environment that is similar to what it's going to be in the fermentation jug. So one thing I've noticed is that the caramelized honey is very sticky, but it does dissolve rather slowly, which is good enough for me. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch the yeast into this. Now it's time to add the water and dissolve our caramelized honey. So I've decided it's a good idea to crank up the heat just a little bit, because while I was letting it sit here, I let it sit too long. The water's going to help definitely dissolve it, and that heat's going to definitely help make that caramelization just a little bit easier to handle. Right now it kind of bunches up and looks like that. Honey's now starting to dissolve a little bit, so we're going to keep on stirring this up. I'm pretty much in love with the color of this mead right now. This is beautiful. I can't wait to see how this ferments out. I think we're almost done. For reference, this has been about 10 minutes. Okay, we're going to keep that hot. We're going to add just like a little bit more water, and then we're going to mix in our 2 pounds, 8 ounces of honey. I'd be interested to see what this does to the color of the overall thing. I think that the Bochet part is dirty enough that it's not going to be a significant lightening of the color. Behind me in that bowl, the yeast are just going for it. I checked a couple minutes ago. You can already hear them sizzling. They're hard at work. And now we're just going to stir it until it's all dissolved, and then we're going to put it in the jug. Clearly there's not much of a color change here. It still looks like I would compare this to maybe a really dark beer or that Kraken rum stuff. Like your village has just been burned down by the Vikings. Let's do a real quick smell test on this thing. It smells like honey, but it also smells like the same. It smells exactly like what it is. It's kind of like really boring. temperature of our honey must here is 140 degrees. We're going to use this awesome Coors Light cup to pour some cold water in here and try to bring that temperature down before we pitch the yeast. Time to put the lid on this thing and shake, shake, shake. I can already tell this is still kind of hot, so it's gonna have to sit and cool, but we can always take the gravity reading. That's fine because I think I overfilled it anyways. Let's keep shaking. What a beautiful color that is. I mean, I just gotta say it, it's beautiful. So let's take our gravity reading real quick before we sit and let this thing cool. So it's time to put our hydrometer in. I'm going to pop some of these bubbles, hopefully, so that we can see the must just a little bit better. And let's find out how sweet this is. I'm guessing very. So our starting gravity should be 1.11. One of the fancy things about hydrometers is not only do they tell you the gravity of your product, but they also, if you flip it over, watch the line, will tell you the potential alcohol. And if you look at the scale right there, 1.1 is just over 14%. Our yeast will ferment up to 14%. So we're going to have a little bit of sweetness left over, obviously, since this is beyond the capacity of what our yeast can do. So I've gone ahead and made a little note of the starting gravity of 1.11. We'll take a look at that again once we pull this out and do the bottling process. I'm going to add some of this back in to the point where I think that it's safe again. I want to leave some headroom so that when I add my yeast, I'm anticipating this is actually going to bubble up a lot more than the last one did because of the way that the sugar is. I'm only going to add a little bit of this, which seems like kind of a waste, but I don't want all the bubbles to blow out the airlock. Okay, this is what I'm going to get rid of. It smells really interesting. It's almost fruity, actually. I can't tell what kind of fruit that is, like a dried pear or a dried apple or something like that. This is going to be really good, I think. I think this time the yeast are really going to go crazy in this mix. There's so much sugar for them in here. What I need to do now is unscrew the lid, take our magical airlock, stick it on top of the bottle, and now we let it sit. So now we wait while the yeast is converting all that sugar in our Bochet must into alcohol that we can eventually drink. We're going to see probably later today, I would expect, that the neck of the bottle is going to be very full because I did fill it up quite a lot. We'll check up on it here in a couple days and then we'll let it sit even longer, probably up to 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks maybe for this one. But I'm gonna go ahead and order that auto siphon right now. It is now Bochet Day 28. I just took a gravity reading. We're sitting at about 1.028, and it is time to move the contents of our primary fermenter into a secondary fermentation, which just means taking it out of the old one, sticking it in a pot, and then putting it back in a clean carboy. This is my life-saving auto siphon. We're gonna pump the contents of this demijohn into a stainless steel pot using the magic of a vacuum. We've got all the contents transferred out of the jug. This is what it looks like now. You can just see the lees at the bottom. We're going to clean it, and then we are going to stick all that back in the jug and let it clear. We just finished transferring the mead back into the original demijohn. It looks a lot cleaner now with the stuff not sitting at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and throw the airlock back on this and let it sit for a while until it clears out. We'll let it sit a little longer than the last time I tried mead because there's sediment in the bottom of my bottles, so we're just going to wait. It's been 24 days since we started clearing our Bochet must, and it's not clearing very quickly, but most of the yeast, it seems, has dropped out. So I'm going to go ahead and bottle it today, March 21st, 2021, which could also be a special day because my brother and my sister-in-law are in the hospital right now, about to have a baby boy named Maverick. So I'm going to bottle this on his birthday. Maybe in a year from now, we can indulge ourselves a little bit with a wonderfully labeled mead with some burnt edges. First step, we're going to take all of this and we're going to do one more racking of it just to get it off of the yeast that's sitting at the bottom. And then we're going to bottle 4 750 milliliter wine bottles, and I'm going to take whatever's left and stick it in a mason jar. So before we take the contents of this pot and transfer them into these bottles, I'm going to do one final gravity reading. 1.025-ish. I don't remember if that was the same as last time, but that's what we got. Let's dump this back in. That was awesome. Auto siphon for the win. Now it's time to put the corks in these bottles and then do the shrink wrap immediately afterwards. Doesn't that look awesome? There's only one thing left to do. In case you're curious how I made the labels, here's the back one. That is how I make the labels. There you go. And there you have it. We'll repeat the process for the front. There's another one. In a way, it's kind of poetic that we started the video with burning, and now we're ending the video with burning, except for this time, it looks way better. And 52 days later, we're finally done with our Bochet. Look at this beautiful bottle. Oh my goodness. And more than likely, I'm not going to have a bunch of sediment at the bottom like I do in this one. I might make a separate video about that. This is so beautiful. For only being 52 days old, this is pretty darn good. It's fizzy too. I did good on this one. We're going to let it sit for at least a year before we open these ones because that's going to mellow out so nicely. I've given absolutely zero thought to what I'm going to do next. I'm not ready to go out and buy a wine press, so I'm not thinking it's going to be a wine, so maybe some fruit-infused kind of mead just to keep it going after all. I do have 6 more labels and 4 more bottles. If you like the video, subscribe and like the video. And if you have any suggestions for things that I might try in the future, put them in the comment section because this is such a fun little hobby. In the meantime, I'm gonna go drink more of the mead. See ya. The final thoughts on the Bochet Mead. This is my wife, Kayla. Kayla, say hi to everyone. She's about to sample this. Just little sips at a time. It's okay. You'll like it. Oh, there it is.
It's good.